Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Boss Up and Glow Up with Lexi Sample. And in this podcast, we always touch on mental health, how to glow up, and just how to be the best possible version of yourself that you can be. And today, I want to talk about it is okay to start over. I know sometimes it feels like it's too late to pursue something that you want to pursue, but it's never too late. There is always time. And starting over is just such a weird experience because nobody really prepares you for the grief that comes with becoming a different person. People online make reinvention look so aesthetic and cute. Like you buy a bunch of new things, you start waking up at 5, you start journaling, and suddenly your whole life changes. Meanwhile, in real life, starting over can literally feel like your entire identity is crumbling. And I think changing career paths is one of the biggest identity shifts a person can go through because your career becomes attached to how people see you and honestly, how you see yourself. Like when somebody asks, what do you do? What are you going to school for? That becomes part of your identity. So when that answer changes, it can make you feel so unsettling. And sometimes you don't even know what you want. Sometimes you change. I've changed my major a million fucking times. Like when I first went to college, I started as a bio major because I didn't fucking know. And then I switched to psychology and pre law, thinking that's what I was interested in. I didn't like that either. And then I changed to business administration. I don't know. What can you do with that? I don't know. And then I switched to psychology. Like I remember getting to the point where I was like, wait, I love psychology. I love mental health. I love the brain. I love understanding people. But I started thinking, like, I don't know how I feel about talk therapy. And I don't know if that's going to fit me in the long run. And that's literally what I'm in school for right now. And this realization is scary and it's so vulnerable because I haven't really talked about it that much because I'm not so sure. And like, I'm spending so much time and money on school, practicum, internships, long nights, stress, tears. And then when your brain starts panicking and you're like, wait, am I wasting my life away? Am I wasting my time? Am I making the wrong choice? What if people think I failed? What if I start over and I regret it? Like, what if people judge me for starting over so much? Like, is this embarrassing? And I think what makes it harder is people around you sometimes don't understand the career grief unless they've experienced it themselves. There are some people that have always known what they want to do. And that's another thing that kind of makes me struggle with my identity crisis low key because my mom, she's a teacher. She always knew she wanted to be a teacher. She didn't really change her major or career like a million and 10 times like I did. Like my sister knew she wanted to be a nurse. She didn't change her mind and career so much like I did. And like seeing them always knowing and then me not knowing, like I feel like to them I look like a failure and I look like an idiot because technically nothing bad happened. You're just evolving and realizing something doesn't fit you, and that is okay. But emotionally, it feels huge. It feels like you're mourning a version of your future. And like, it is okay to change your mind because realistically, if you don't try something, how do you know if you didn't like it? Like, for example, like if my sister went into psychology, like how would she know if she didn't like it if she didn't try it? Like, you know what I mean? Like she became a nurse like always knowing. And that's not everybody. And honestly, I think a lot of people stay stuck because they don't realize it's okay to outgrow a path and to change your mind. They think commitment means forcing yourself to stay miserable forever. No, there's a difference between discipline and self abandonment. And sometimes we choose careers based on survival mode. I've realized that sometimes we choose careers based on the emotional state that we're in at the time and not necessarily who we're becoming later. And I think that's why so many people hit their mid 20s and they suddenly feel lost or like, fuck, like what's going on? Because when you're younger, you choose based on like survival, security, approval by maybe your parents. Because you know how a lot of people's parents like force them to go to college and they want them to do a certain thing or something that you know will be a stable career, or you're just scared or just wanting to make people proud, not necessarily alignment. And I remember when I first started my original path, it genuinely made sense for the version of me that I was at the time. Like I care deeply about helping people. I still do. But once I got into certain environments and gained real world experience, I started learning more about myself. And that's the thing that nobody tells you. You do not really know if a career fits you until you've actually experienced it in real life. Like you can go to school for something, but if you have not worked in that field or worked that job, you don't know if that suits you if you have not done it. You can love a subject but hate the day to day job. You can love psychology but not enjoy sitting in therapy sessions all day. You can love helping people but realize you work better in a fast paced environment, and that doesn't make you flaky. It makes you self aware. And I think people shame themselves way too much for changing direction after gaining experience. But honestly, gaining experience is supposed to change your perspective. That's literally the whole point. And I think another thing is sometimes we outgrow the dream because we finally become secure enough to admit what we actually want. Damn. Sit with that one for a second. Because once you spend years in survival mode, sometimes you choose practicality over passion automatically. And then later, once you emotionally mature a little bit more, you finally start asking, what actually fits me? Your body always knows first. Like before your brain fully accepts something, your nervous system starts screaming, hollering at you. You start to procrastinate more. You start to feel exhausted all the time. You dread doing certain things. You feel emotionally disconnected and you stop feeling excited about your future. And then you start calling yourself lazy when in reality, your spirit is tired. And I remember having so many moments where I was sitting there thinking, why am I suddenly so unmotivated? I'm usually a motivated person. What is going on? Why am I so emotionally exhausted and drained all the time? And why does it feel heavier than it used to? And honestly, I think deep down, I already knew I was changing internally before I consciously admitted it to myself. And we ignore ourselves because we think pushing through discomfort automatically means growth. But sometimes discomfort is just redirection. There's a difference between healthy challenge and chronic misalignment. Healthy challenge still feels purposeful. Misalignment feels draining in your soul. And that's the difference. And something else I realized is burnout doesn't always come from doing too much. Sometimes burnout comes from forcing yourself into environments that no longer fit who you are. That's why some people can work insane hours at something they genuinely love and still feel energized, while somebody else works less hours and feels emotionally dead inside. And I kind of felt like that because at my internship, I'm doing like 4 to 6 hour days. And that's not long, but I feel so drained afterwards. I'm like, huh, I could sleep for days after that. Like, it's crazy. Like, I don't know. And starting over humbles you badly. And I think that's another reason why we get a little scared about starting over because it is so fucking humbling. Okay. Can we talk about how humbling it is at the beginning? Because once you're a beginner, you just feel like an idiot, low key. Like nobody likes not knowing what they're doing, especially when you're used to being competent in something already. And social media makes this so much worse because everybody online acts like they have their life perfectly figured out by 20 freaking 2 years old. Meanwhile, you're sitting there Googling career paths at 2 a.m. at 26 years old and having a full crisis. I remember having moments where I felt embarrassed even thinking about changing directions because I kept comparing myself to people who looked so established already. And you start thinking, they're so ahead. They already have it figured out. I'm starting over. I'm such a loser. But honestly, a lot of people are secretly miserable in their careers that they refuse to leave. Like they just stay in it because they feel like they've come so far in their career, even though they fucking hate it and are afraid of starting over. And I had to realize I would rather temporarily feel uncomfortable and just upset that I had to start over rather than feel permanently trapped into something that I already started to realize wasn't for me. And that realization changed my mindset completely because, yes, starting over is scary. Yes, becoming a beginner again is uncomfortable. And yes, rebuilding confidence takes time. But staying somewhere that no longer aligns with you slowly destroys your spirit. And honestly, I think people underestimate how brave it is to pivot. It takes courage to admit this no longer serves me and fits me. A lot of people will never do that and they will just settle because they're comfortable in their job now and they don't want to admit that it isn't for them. But they know deep down that it isn't, but they do not want to start over because they're scared. And I want to reiterate this. You are not behind. There's no such thing. And I think comparison is one of the biggest reasons why people stay stuck. You look around and it seems like everybody already has their career, their marriage, their house, their money, their direction, their certainty. Meanwhile, you're confused and you're like, what the fuck? And I feel like social media made people think life is supposed to happen on one perfect timeline, and that is the furthest thing from the truth. And life is not linear. Some people figure things out early. Some people reinvent themselves multiple times. Me. Some people peak later. Some people completely change industries. Me. And some people go back to school at 40. Like, there are a few nurses that I work with at the hospital. And she told me, she's like in her 60s now. She told me she went to nursing school at 50. Like, it's never fucking too late to change your mind. I forget what she said she was doing before that, but then she realized she didn't want to do it anymore and switched to nursing at 50 years old. That's not too late. People change their mind all the time. And I had to stop viewing changing directions as falling behind and started to view it as becoming more aligned. Because what's the alternative? Staying in a life that no longer feels right just so other people think you're successful? No, no, thank you. And I really want people that are listening to this to understand this. Just because somebody looks established doesn't mean they're fulfilled. Some people are deeply unhappy in careers they worked years to get into. And that's why I think alignment matters more than appearances, because eventually appearances stop comforting you if your real life feels emotionally wrong. And that's another thing I've been struggling with recently. Like, okay, let me vent. I love psychology, I love helping people. But I'm more interested in the brain and how the brain works and how people think and understanding more why people think, not so much the sitting in the one-on-one talk therapy, but I like the more in-depth like brain aspect of it. And I'm currently on a path for talk therapy, which I could, so I can go either one way or another. Like, I could stop at the master's point, but then I would be limited to only the talk therapy, or I can go for the PsyD, which is talk therapy and more clinical based assessments, but that would take me another 5 to 7 years. So now I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it is what it is. But I just think alignment matters way more than things look, okay? Because, like, I was kind of pushing through because I was like, oh, I need to be a doctor. I need to be a doctor. Like, I need to have that title. Like, why? Like, there's so many other things I can do without spending that that long to get to being a doctor. You know what I mean? Like, that's just an example, but I'm sure a lot of you have experienced that. But letting go of who you thought you were supposed to be is so important. And I think the hardest part about changing paths is grieving the version of yourself you thought you were going to become. Because maybe you imagined your whole future one way. Maybe people around you associated you with that identity. Maybe you spent years building toward it. And so letting go feels so emotional and difficult. And honestly, I had to realize I was more attached to the idea of who I thought I was supposed to be rather than what genuinely made me happy. And that realization will humble you because sometimes we stay attached to old dreams out of ego, not alignment. We don't want to waste the years. We don't want to disappoint people. We don't want to admit we changed, but changing is human. You are supposed to evolve. And honestly, I think one of the most powerful things a person can do is trust themselves enough to pivot, even when it's scary. Because at the end of the day, this is your life, not social media's life, not your family's life, not your old self's life, yours. And sometimes the biggest glow up is finally giving yourself permission to be somebody different. And that is a very difficult pill to swallow because we have spent so much time and energy thinking we needed to do this thing and maybe even to try to make somebody else happy, which I feel like that's a huge thing for a lot of people because a lot of people go into college right out of high school because their parents wanted them to. Sometimes their parents will like pay for it. Mine didn't, but like sometimes they will. And they're like, I will pay for your school if you become a doctor. And they get into it to be a doctor when they don't really want to be a doctor. And I actually had a friend in that situation. Their parents were so adamant on them being a doctor, they weren't allowed to go to school for anything else. And they did not want to do that. They were into, I think, engineering, which that's still a fucking great career. Like, I don't understand that. I can't wrap my head around the parents that force their children to be something just because they want them to be. Like, why? Let your child thrive. Let them be who they want to be. Because at the end of the day, you have to deal with that. Like, I couldn't imagine if my mom forced me to be something. Like, if she was pressuring me to be like a dentist, I would lose my mind. I would hate that. And honestly, feeling pressured would make me not want to do it even more. So, at the end of the day, you need to remember this is your life. This is your journey. This is your story. Nobody else's. People, maybe they'll be disappointed in you for switching. Who the fuck cares? Would you rather spend years and the rest of your life miserable in a job because you don't want to disappoint your family or other people around you, or you don't want to look stupid? No. Why would you waste all that time out of a fear of other people's opinions? This is your life. You're living it. You are allowed to change your mind. It is the most normal thing in the world. Have you ever changed your mind about what shoes you want to wear? It's the same shit. We are human. We are allowed to change our mind. It is okay. And I know changing your mind and starting over is a fucking scary thing, especially when you feel like you're getting older and you feel like you're behind because you see everybody else having their decisions made. But realistically, everybody has something going on in their life that they are confused about. They don't know what they want in a certain situation. It's not always career, it could be something else. But we all had to change our mind about something. We all have changed our paths. It is okay. Life is not meant to be one perfect straight timeline. It is meant to have little turns and curves and bumps in the road. That is normal. That is life. So if you are thinking about changing your mind, or you're in a career right now and you're like, fuck, I really don't like this, but I'm really so scared of starting over, knock it off. Stop being scared. It is normal. It is never too late to change your mind. It is the most normal thing you can do. All right, that is my rant for the day. And I hope this made you realize that if you're thinking about starting over, it's okay. You're allowed, and it is totally normal. I don't want you to feel like you're falling behind just because you changed your mind. It's okay to change your mind. And I want to thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I really hoped this made you realize that everything will work out how it's supposed to. Anything that is aligning with you will align with you. You can't force it. I would rather you change your mind and change your job 50,000 times and find something you truly love that you're happy about than you spend years and years and years in a path or a career just because you were afraid to start over. It's okay. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next week.